Let's talk about the housing market. It's this huge force that's constantly changing, shaping our cities and, our lives in really powerful ways. But what if I told you that all those ups and downs, they're not as random as you might think? Yeah, I'm sure this feels familiar to a lot of you. One minute, prices are just shooting for the moon, and the next, it feels like everything slams on the brakes. It's like being on a roller coaster in the dark, right? But what if there's actually a predictable pattern to all this madness? Well, that roller coaster ride, it actually has a name. It's called the housing cycle. Think of it like the market's natural rhythm, a pattern of ups and downs that we can actually start to understand and maybe even anticipate. So let's really dig into what that means. So, at its heart, the housing cycle is just this constant process of change. The best way to think about it is like the seasons, but for real estate. You have the boom, which is like a hot, sunny summer. Then you have the bust, and that's the cold winter. And of course, in between, you've got the recovery phase, which is kind of like springtime. Right, and it's super important to remember this cycle isn't happening in some kind of bubble. Nope, it is totally connected to the health of the entire economy. It's like two gears locked together. When the bigger economy is humming along, the housing market usually is too. And yeah, the opposite is also true. All right, so let's start with the fun part, the most exciting part of this whole ride, the boom. This is that steep climb right to the top of the roller coaster, where it feels like everything is just going up, up, up. So what's actually fueling this climb? What's pushing that cart up the hill? Well, it's a really powerful mix of things. First, you've got strong job growth, which means more people have the money and, just as importantly, the confidence to buy a house. Then you've got low interest rates. That makes borrowing money way cheaper, which just pours more fuel on the fire. You start seeing construction cranes popping up everywhere, and naturally, home prices are climbing higher and higher. And what's the result of all that? You get this incredibly vibrant market. I mean, if you're a homeowner, your net worth is growing. If you're a developer, business is just fantastic. There's this real feeling of optimism. Prosperity is in the air. But as anyone who's ever been on a roller coaster can tell you, that climb it can't last forever. What comes next is the bust phase, that big stomach in your throat drop. And just like that, all that optimism seems to just evaporate. It's replaced by a whole lot of uncertainty. So what triggers a bust? Well, it's basically the exact opposite of what causes a boom. You get higher unemployment, which means fewer people are looking to buy. Banks get nervous and tighten up their lending, making it much harder to get a mortgage. And as all that demand just dries up, property values, which seem like they could only go up, start to fall. When you put them side by side like this, it's kind of fascinating, isn't it? It's a perfect mirror image. Every single thing that pushes the boom upward has an opposite that triggers the bust. Low interest rates become tight credit. Strong job growth turns into higher unemployment. It's this perfect and, yeah, sometimes painful symmetry. So the big question is, are we just stuck on this ride with no control? Are we just helpless passengers? Well, not completely. This is where governments and central banks try to step in. Their whole job is to try and smooth out the track of it, make the highs a little less crazy and the lows a little less painful. And they have a couple of main tools or levers they can pull to do this. The first one is monetary adjustments. Basically, that just means changing interest rates to make credit cheaper or more expensive. The second lever is housing subsidies, which can help prop up demand and keep housing more affordable, especially when the market takes a nosedive. Now, the goal here isn't to get rid of the cycle altogether. I mean, that's probably impossible. The real goal is moderation. It's about trying to stop the boom from turning into a dangerous speculative bubble and trying to keep the bust from becoming a totally devastating crash for everyone. Okay, so why should you care about any of this? Why does this cycle matter? Well, because it's not just some abstract theory you read about in a textbook. It has a huge real-world impact on our communities, on our cities, and on our lives. For the people who plan our cities, understanding this cycle is absolutely critical. It lets them anticipate problems before they happen, like, we're going to have a housing shortage, or we might be facing a wave of foreclosures. It helps them plan for development that can actually last, that's sustainable, no matter which way the market is swinging. And really, that's what it all comes down to, foresight. Being able to see what's on the horizon isn't about trying to get rich quick by timing the market. It's about protecting the well-being of our communities. It's about making sure people have stable homes and building cities that can weather any economic storm. So that leaves us with one last big question to think about. We've seen the pattern, right? We know the forces that are at play, and we even have some tools to try and manage it all. But can we ever really escape the cycle? Or is this constant rhythm of boom and bust just a fundamental, unavoidable part of how our economies work? Something to think about.